fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to Healing Outside the Box. I am Rosemary Lachance, a spiritual energy healer and teacher.
Hi, and I'm Dina Scungio, a student and teacher of spirituality.
We are co-hosts for this thought-provoking series and are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. This series is recorded and will be shown in your area on your local public service cable network. Please contact them for dates and times.
If you have a group that you think would be interested in what we have to offer, we are available to come to your group and teach. We will give you our contact information at the end of the show. Please visit Rosemary's website and click on My TV Show, where you'll find a wealth of information. Our shows are available also for you to watch on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Healing Outside the Box, and you can make your choices. All the shows are numbered, and we're constantly adding shows as well, so keep checking back. We are also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box, and you can go to our page and like the page, and you'll get all the latest information. Everything is posted that's happening on the show. And we hope you enjoy our show.
Okay, this is our 188th show, and the title of the show is One Woman's Near-Death Experience, and our guest tonight is Sarah Murray. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
So good to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dina. Thank you very much.
Let me tell you just a little bit about Sarah. This is Sarah's second time on our show. Since her last time here, so much more has happened to her, and I will let her explain it all to you. She has done presentations to the IANS group at UConn and in her hometown of Brantford, and that's the International Association of Near-Death Experiences. Also, along with a therapist, psychologist who specializes in and presents studies of this topic and the impact on experiencers, they presented as a team at Columbia University in the master's program for people becoming therapists, and were studying the spiritual influences in psychology related to the spiritual psychological impact of near-death experiences and how they affect people's lives and psyches in many ways. Okay, so Sarah, have you remembered more of your experience since it happened to? Maybe we should back up a little bit and just briefly tell the people how this happened to you.
Yes, these experiences came out of having been in a car accident in which I was declared clinically dead, as it's called. And since that time, I have continued to learn from what I experienced, and fortunately have found very understanding, open people who want to know about this, and people who have experienced such a thing and what can be learned from it by everybody that I share it with. And my intention is to be able to help others with what I experienced in the NDEs, and that continues. That continues for me to want to use this to somehow, in sharing it with others, help to make a difference in their lives.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little bit more about what was like on the other side? I want to briefly fill them in.
Oh, I'd love to tell you what's like on the other side, and every time that I do, and what I experienced on the other side is what I experienced.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because my job is a paramedic, and I encounter these type of things all the time. What do you remember about your car accident, and how did it happen, since I wasn't here for the first show? I'd love
Well,
to
that's
hear.
okay. It's good that you asked, and I don't know, because I was knocked out. I was unconscious at some point while still in the car before I got thrown out of the car in this accident. So perhaps it was a way of being protected from some of the memories of what it would be like in that kind of traumatic accident. But I did get details via others who witnessed the accident, state troopers who were there, and then later got the full report on what had happened. But I actually didn't have any conscious memories of any of this in terms of the physical event of the accident.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And which was a kind of blessing in a certain way.
I often wonder what is absorbed, if people are kind of in and out of it, and what they absorb, what they don't.
Right.
You know, what's happening. Because we're doing so much at the point in time.
I know. And there were really good paramedics there for me.
Great.
You know, and I'm grateful to all of them. There are a lot of people who helped me, many whom I still don't know exactly who they are. But I try to live my life in a way that says thank you to them. Because they, like you, as a paramedic, there were many who really got me through, and the medical people and the state troopers. I mean, there were so many that assisted in trying to keep me alive and then on with the next step of the healing process, you know. So I'm very, very grateful for all of that. In a certain way, I am grateful I don't remember consciously physical aspects of the accident. I'd rather remember the experience I had traveling to what some call the other side. That I'd rather remember anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe you could bring us a little more on that, and I will play that show again locally, and then everyone can see it on YouTube if they want to catch up too. So you don't have to tell the whole thing, but just kind of whatever you feel in your heart you want to say about the experience.
Well, you know, it was an experience of, I believe, for myself, total love, a way for me to see the spirits of my parents who had passed prior, and to also be rejuvenated to want to live my life here. Very often when people have these NDEs, not necessarily, but they're at some kind of turning point in their life, they may have been through a lot of difficulties and traumas and challenges, whatever they were, and may have been at a place of thinking maybe life didn't have much of a purpose.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
And I don't know that that was what was necessarily there for me, but for whatever reason, I had this experience that allowed me to be recommitted to a life well lived and to knowing I had a purpose. And I learned many, many things. I certainly, on the other side, was blessed to feel very welcome. My experience was quite positive. My experience had a lot of humor in it. And I did see some loved ones, including animals that I had adored.
Oh, that's nice.
And I saw them again, including horses that I had loved when I grew up down in Virginia, and other loved ones who had passed, and that was in that tunnel experience. And then it was almost as though all of them were just sort of parting the ways so I could go and see my parents. And they were primary people for me. They still are primary souls in my life.
That's nice.
And I believe we've probably been together a lot. And my mother and father were there on the other side of this curved bridge. And the first thing my mother said, and many people experience this, there'll be a recognized loved one who'd already passed, who'll be telling them either, okay, it's time for you to stay here now, or you're going to need to go back to planet Earth. You've still got more to do there. It was my mother who said, in her own inimitable fashion, she showed up so I could recognize her. You know, I knew who she was. And she's telling me right off the bat, go back, it's not your time. And it was like, you better listen to your mother kind of thing. You know, and I was like, hey, Mama, you know, thanks. I'm happy to see you, too. And then my father was standing there with her. And again, I understand that, and many people describe this, we know that they didn't need a physical body anymore, but they would appear, and that's the power of love, I believe. They appear so you know, oh, that's Mama, that's Daddy. They're here, their souls, their spirits are here to be with me. And we had this amazing reunion. And my mother, of course, made it clear I needed to go back. But she said to me, don't you know that we love you wherever you are?
Aw.
And she said that they are with me. And my father, who in this life had struggled with alcoholism, actually that was considered the cause of his death, was absolutely free of alcoholism. He looked very well, and he reassured me that what my mother was saying was right. Mm-hmm. And it was quite a beautiful experience. I'm blessed that it was so positive, and anything about my father's struggles here on earth, there was no evidence of it when I saw him on the other side. He was free of that.
Good.
And he thanked me for being a good daughter, and he said it in the present tense. He said, you are a good daughter.
Aw.
And I had that experience, and then I went on, and over the years since the last interview,
Mm-hmm.
I remembered deeper pieces of the experience.
Okay.
And the understanding of my having made a choice at a soul level, I'll say, to come to this life and experience certain lessons. And I have no recall of making those choices. I still don't. But I believe that I did, nonetheless. And I also believe that the resources are always available to me with a lot of spiritual help to learn these lessons and then in some way enrich my life and the lives of others because of the lessons that I've had. And one of the big things that's happened to me over the years since the last interview here is, as corny as it might sound, that something came out of this for me where I've come to recognize that everything really is okay, no matter what it looks like externally.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that we all go through things that are very difficult, and we're sometimes wondering, why is this happening, and this shouldn't be happening, and all of these things. But I learned from my NDEs, and if I remember it, and I don't always, everything really is okay. And in the bigger picture, this is something that will look like a little speck in that larger picture.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, we have the opportunity, I believe, and this is one of the big things my NDE taught me and continues to teach me, deepening at the levels that it teaches me, is everything really happens for a purpose. And we often hear this, and we often hear, you know, things are as they're supposed to be. And I've heard that many times, and I go, yeah, but it's not very much fun when you're experiencing it, you know. So it's really
Here.
cool to recognize that, yes, I'm a human being in this body, and I'm having this human, earthly, physical experience. But the NDE taught me to remember, and I remembered a little bit more each day, that I'm ultimately a spiritual being. And that essence of who I am will go on. Just like my parents' essence was there, and I was with them, and I experienced their love. I still do. I experienced the love of a higher being. I still do. I experienced a conversation with what I'll call a supreme being.
Really?
Who actually was very sweet, funny, and asked me for some input about whether I thought I should go further to the other side and be where my parents are, or did I want to go back to planet Earth? And I remember this, and there was some kind of guardian angel there. It could have been one who had been with me in this life, you know. There was a very protective, gentle, loving, sweet being there as I'm being asked, well, what do you think you need to do, Sarah? Do you want to move on, meaning go where your parents are and do the real deal, cross the bridge? You know, and my mother told me, you cross that bridge, there's no turning back. You have to stay. And because it was like a curved Monet bridge. Again, bridges are often in NDEs because they're connectors. You know, they're crossing over.
Right.
My bridge showed up as one of the Monet curved bridges, like in many of his paintings.
Right.
And she just told me, don't you dare cross that bridge. And I was like, okay, Mom, I guess I better listen to her. This was a woman always to be reckoned with, and that hadn't changed. But at any rate, long story short, very amazing moment where I was asked, what do you think you need to do?
Right.
In other words, move on there or come back here. And I remember saying, and I remember this kind of feeling this kind of celestial laughter from this higher being. I said, well, you know, it's really nice here. Why in the name of God would I want to go back to planet Earth when it's so nice here, you know?
Right.
And
Do you remember how you felt? Do you remember the feeling?
I felt
like
torn, and thank you for asking that, Dina, because I felt torn. There was a part of me that really wanted to stay there, and it wasn't like a death wish kind of thing. It was more like, wow, this is how it really could be. And I like it. And maybe this is where I'm really from. Maybe this is the source of my being. Maybe this is where I came from, and eventually I'll go back to. But I also knew my children needed me. And when I was in the trauma unit, the first hospital I was at, I went code blue again, and both my son and daughter were there, and they were older teenagers at the time. And when I had this experience and I was, you know, still on the other side, I heard their voices in my mother's heart, which said, Mommy, please don't leave us. And they were older teenagers. They called me Mom now. I hadn't been Mommy, except for when they were little.
Right.
And I heard it as, Mommy, please don't leave us. And so what I said to this higher being was, well, I know I need to go back. I know that my children need me.
See, I've always said you have free will everywhere. Here, on the other
Yes, you
side,
do.
in the heavens, the different places that are on the other side, we always have free will. We're never
Absolutely.
forced. And that they had a
Absolutely.
real good sense of humor in heaven.
Great humor.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, like with my father, seeing my father's spirit there and seeing him well and whole. And one of the things he said to me in this whole experience was that you keep growing on the other side.
Yes.
And he was explaining
right, exactly.
to me that
See?
he had a lot of lessons that he still learned once he got to the other side. What helped him was, for him, free of the alcoholism, he was able to work these things through, and he said he had a lot of help. It was very, very interesting.
Yes.
But he would share that with me, and he let me know that he was doing okay. And I was so happy.
Oh,
I needed to know that he was okay.
Yeah.
Because the death from alcoholism is very,
Yeah.
very difficult to watch and very difficult, I'm sure,
To
for
go
him
through,
to have
yeah.
experienced. And then he asked me, which was so precious, and my mother so dear, just so strong with her love, you know, and it was nice to see them together. And he said to me, I'd like to still be your father and watch out for you and do the things I was not able to do on earth as your father, and protect you and keep an eye on you. And I told him I would like that very much. And since that time, I've felt my father around me, keeping an eye on me and watching out for me and
That's nice.
protecting me like a father would protect a daughter, and I feel that. But definitely there is humor, like you said, and I remember too having an experience. It was documented. You know, the code blue stuff is documented. And it's never that really long. You know, where you lose a pulse and you're not breathing, your heart is stopped, that kind of stuff. But so much can happen because in the place where, if you will, the experiences happen in NDE, there is no time and space.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so you can have these vast spiritual experiences in what in Earth time is a couple of minutes.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And I had also the very funny experience, to me it was amusing, and other NDE people I've heard speak have shared this as well. When I was in the trauma unit at this hospital I was taken to, I had, I think, what was my last NDE of the series of them from the time I was on the highway and the first state trooper got there till
You had died like 3 times
Right.
and came back.
Oh, you had 3
I
different
had the
experiences.
Lifestar helicopter there, and then this time in the trauma unit after I was in there, and they were feverishly working over me, you know. Very good trauma department at this particular hospital, which was another blessing, because they're a small hospital, but they have an amazing trauma unit in Connecticut, and I remember in this last of the NDEs, where my soul left my body, looking down on my body, how quickly we forget the physical body. And I'm thinking, oh, that poor woman, I wonder what happened to her.
You didn't.
That is how quickly our soul can leave the body. The
Can leave
body is
without
not even
regrets.
remembered.
Yeah.
It's fine, you can let it go.
Oh, really?
The body, of course, in real true death, it's death when you're dead, as opposed to nearly dead, you know, your body just eventually evaporates. But I had no
Should evaporate a little
separation anxiety of any type when my soul left my body. I was just looking over this woman, and they were feverishly trying to save her. You know, like 20 people run in, you know, they're all, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I wonder what happened to that poor woman. And of course, this was me or my physical vehicle.
Right, and you didn't.
You know, and then I also vividly remember coming back into my body, and I was like, ah, this is rough, you know, and
Did you like all of a sudden feel pain, but coming back
I
in?
did, and I was scared,
weight
and I
and
was
all that?
confused, and what's going on, what's happened. I couldn't speak to anybody. I was in and out of consciousness. I was also being intubated, so I couldn't talk. And it was quite an experience of shock to be back in the physical reality when I had been there, that other
It was so nice.
place, and yet I fully accepted and understood that this is where I needed to be, and I was not done. And what the experience gave me and continually gives me in a much more profound way now than then is understanding that, if you will, paradigm shift that I considered my NDEs the gift that keeps on giving. Because
You remembered more.
I remember more.
Has it been a long time?
It's been now 10 and a half years ago.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And who would think it still has so much meaning for me now? It has more meaning for me now. But at the time it all happened, the thing that made me start to realize something really had happened very profoundly for me, and I couldn't quite identify it. The remembrance of NDE, it comes in bits and pieces. A lot of people I've heard speak about NDEs have shared that. And then it continues to come. Memories of it continue to come. And then the thing that so affected me was when I was able to speak again, I asked my son and my daughter, I didn't ask them if they said this particular thing, Mommy, please don't leave us. But I just said, during that last time, and I know that it was what had happened, it's been explained to me, you know, that they had to resuscitate me again. And I said, and I know that you guys were in the room for a period of time. Did you say anything at that time? I just sort of asked them in an open-ended way. And they said, yeah, we said, Mommy, please don't leave us. And so I said to them, well, in my mother's heart, I heard you. And the thing about NDEs that has helped me and continues to help me today is that I recognize that my consciousness or my spiritual essence is not in my brain, it's not in my physical body. This body houses it for now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a book, Proof of Heaven, written by a neurosurgeon.
I read it.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, amazing description of heaven
Mm-hmm.
from a guy who had been purely science, you know, who, through what he was going through, had NDEs, and has described his experience in amazing detail, as you know, if you've read that book. But the big point of his story is he had no brain activity. He had spinal meningitis. He had such a high infection that for a period of time he had no brain activity. And what he recognized out of that was that consciousness was still very much alive in him.
Yeah.
You know, and that also, just the fact that when I knew my soul was leaving my body, and I'm looking down at my body and going, gee, who's that?
Right. We are not our body.
We're not our body.
That has come really hit home with me. Yeah. We are not our body.
Yeah.
It's just a vehicle we need to get around on Earth. That's it.
That's right.
And people worship their bodies.
Yeah, people get a little involved. And that's what they do, and sometimes people don't understand their worth is very much something else.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's fine to take good care of yourself. You like to exercise, that's great, you know. But that's not our value.
Right.
You know, we each have such value, and I think that's the thing I also learned in the experience, and to appreciate that in each other. That essence is so vital, you know. If I think about one thing outstanding, besides the fact that, as I said earlier, everything's really okay. You know, it's really okay. And secondly, that love always, always continues into infinity. Mm-hmm. If you have ever loved anyone, an animal or person, you always love them, and they always love you, and that's always there. And so another thing I learned, that if we have relationships here that we can't work out while we're here, they'll get worked out. Mm-hmm. You know, they'll get worked out perhaps in another realm. And maybe sometimes people come into our lives for a period of time, for certain lessons, and they may not seem to be in our lives anymore, but we'll see them again. I mean, I really do believe that. Mm-hmm. You know, and the other major piece of a continuing experience with the NDEs and what they're teaching me is the absolute necessity for forgiveness, and probably of the self more than anyone else.
Yourself.
Yeah. That's the biggie.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
Really?
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah, that is huge. And another part of it is acceptance of where other people are on their own journeys.
Right.
And acceptance of where I am on my journey. You know.
Yourself, yeah.
Do you feel like you were a different person before this happened to you, and that it was necessary for you to head in the direction you're heading in now?
Yeah, I think it was necessary for me, and I don't recommend that you can have an NDE, because you could have an NDE that could end up being a really dead.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean,
yeah, I try to stay away from that.
We don't know. We don't know. But
I'm allergic to pain.
This was the gift I received.
Right.
That I was able to still be here in the face of a near-fatal car accident with horrific injuries, long-term recovery. You know, being told don't expect to ever be who you thought you were before, or to have the skills or the capacities that you had before, there's a likelihood you're not going to regain a lot of the things, including the stuff that would allow me to work in the world and be a contributing member of society.
What,
I
a
mean,
head
actually, yeah, I had traumatic brain injury pretty
you did?
badly, among other things.
Wow.
And so, medically, they have to tell you these things,
Yeah.
and they told my children. And when I was sort of in and out in consciousness, technically there was some semi-coma state that was going on. This was early on, and my son John was nearby my bed, and two doctors are talking. One was a trauma physician, wonderful man who was head of my case, and one of his assistants. And they're basically saying, and I'm there, this was early on, maybe the first night that I was there. We don't see how, with this medical data that's going on, what we're seeing here, that she's going to make it. She might not make it through the night. Now, my son, always the gentleman, he's a lovely gentleman, my son, he says to the doctor, "Excuse me, but maybe you could have that conversation outside the room, because my mother probably can hear you."
Good, smart boy.
I've said that many
You
times in
know,
my job. I've said that many times.
And they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
They were very respectful, and he was very respectful of them. And then later on, when I went back, to the hospital because I was asked to speak, just to share my experience of being a patient in their trauma unit, because they were doing a dedication of a new trauma unit. They gotten a huge donation from a very satisfied patient, and they needed a patient who'd been in their trauma unit to speak about the experience. So I got to see my trauma physician that particular day, and I said, "Hey, doctor, were you the one who said I was going to kick the bucket?" And he looks at me and he goes, "That could have been me." And he said, "I'm really, really glad that I was wrong." But he was a wonderful guy. I mean, I got very good care. I was very fortunate.
It's good that you
but
said that.
it was cool,
Yeah.
and so it was just great. And the same thing happened with the chaplain of the hospital, who had to speak with my children just to prepare them. And he said they basically told him, "Look, with all due respect, Reverend, she's going to make it." And he said, "Oh."
Good.
And so my kids picked up on something, and other people very close to me who rushed down to the trauma unit and saw me still said there was something about me, that my spirit was very much alive. And as bad as I looked, because I was mangled, not a good face day, not a good hair day, not a good body day.
Definitely not a good hair day.
And this friend of mine said, "But Sarah, there was something there around you." And this, again, is that consciousness and that spiritual energy that we all have. She said, "I knew you were going to make it." And she said, "Yeah, you look pretty bad." But she said, "I just knew you were going to make it." So that, again, is the beauty of recognizing that spirit in all of us that will carry us,
So now, since it's happened, do you remember any more of your experience than you did before, or not?
I remember having a conversation with a spiritual being of some sort. There were so many beings of light that help. And they work not so much as individuals, but as this massive group of light and healing. And I felt those around me. And it's hard to describe it in human language.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I have recalled over the years having conversations with different, very sweet, strong, spiritually very strong beings of light. I don't know if they were now angels, spirit guides, some sort of spiritual helpers.
Right.
that I had conversations with that I've been recalling about how prayer, that when we put out a prayer for someone, how the prayers are really heard. And they were talking about the prayers of mothers for their children are taken to the higher being by the angels. And all prayers, however, are important and heard, and they're vital. They matter when we care about someone or a world situation, and we're putting a healing, positive energy into it. It is received, and it's very effective.
And I was taught that when we pray to any of them, our relatives, friends who've passed over, that we have to pray out loud because they can't read our mind. If we pray to an angel or to God or to Christ, we can pray in our mind. They can read our thoughts. But to not forget, when you're praying for someone else that's there, talk out loud. That's how they hear you, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And everything is heard. And everything is taken seriously that concerns us here. The other part of it that I've learned over time is that I very often will ask for things for myself or others. And I believe the universe can manifest that to me, but the missing link was I didn't receive it, and I missed it when it came. So I'm more aware of receiving the gifts and the blessings that I wanted to manifest for myself and others. To be an open vessel of receiving is just as important as the asking is the receiving.
Good point, yeah.
Another thing I've learned in ENDs, because I'm a very giving person, is to also receive giving from others, to allow other people to give to me.
Give to you.
It's a very humbling experience to be lying in a hospital trauma unit, unable to function or know what happened to you, not sure what your legs, your arms, this or that are for, and you have to rely on other people to care for you. And one of the things I was so aware of was how lovingly I was cared for. And people, when I left the trauma unit, I was taken by ambulance to a larger hospital that could deal with the complicated surgeries I had to have. I remember thanking all of them. And they told me that whenever I could speak, I always thanked them.
Oh, that's nice.
And I believe that was very directed by spiritual helpers that were helping me, that if I was going to get well, I needed to be grateful for the people who were taking care of me. And that was very important.
Wow.
That they knew how much I appreciated what they were doing to help me.
Be grateful. Always be grateful.
Always be grateful. And thank my children and my friends and whoever was there, and many, many praying for me who were on these prayer chains that I have no idea. I mean, I heard my name got out in a church in California. It doesn't matter. It's that loving energy that goes out to help someone who needs help.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How does it still impact your life?
It's interesting because when I was thinking about this interview, I was thinking, wow, I'm not always Miss NDE poster child, okay? I sometimes forget the impact. So how it still impacts my life is, at least today, I remember more quickly and clearly that I am here with purpose. And that my life has meaning, and so does yours and everyone else's. And we need to be here together doing our best in harmony to help each other out, to learn the lessons we're here to learn, and not judge one another. So I think that for me, too, I used to be Little Miss Fix-It. Even my father called me Little Miss Fix-It. I had a plan for everybody. And, if you would just do what I thought was best for you, you'd be just fine.
Tell me about it.
What's your problem? Just listen to what I'm telling you, And so I got to a place since the NDEs, slowly but surely. It wasn't immediate. It's better now than it was right after the NDE, where I'm recognizing It's not my place to tell somebody else how to live their life.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
so true.
I need to take care of how I'm living my life. You know,
It's a good lesson to learn.
it's a
I know.
wonderful lesson to learn.
I had to learn that the hard way too.
Yeah, I can remember when I got better with all this stuff. A friend of mine sent me this sign, emailed it to me, and it said, "Once I gave up my job as general manager of the universe, I got serenity."
I like that.
You know how much time I spent figuring out what was going to be best for you, and I made a list for you. You know, and if you just did it, you'd just be okay.
Manager of the universe.
You know,
I like that.
I know, general manager of the universe. So
I like that a lot.
I have resigned from that position. Not that I ever did it well, or that I actually got hired for the job. This was in my thinking, you know.
That's
but a
funny.
lot of us
A lot of people like that
have
out there.
that. It's a great way for me to avoid what I need to look at in myself.
Yeah, right?
You know, and today if I think somebody's not being loving and supportive of me, I look at, well, am I being loving and supportive of myself? You know?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
whatever it is, I go back to right here, and this is direct result of these NDEs. You know, what I learned in the NDE is it's very safe to look honestly at myself. It's not going to, pardon the pun, it's not going to kill me. And I have a better life today. I'm so much freer, you know, and I have so much more of a passion for life,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How did it impact your life?
a
Yeah.
tremendous passion for life.
Do you feel like you were spiritual before this happened? Or
I think that I was leaning towards wanting to be on a spiritual journey very consciously. But until this is just for me, because you don't have to have an NDE. There are many spiritual people out there that have had very beautiful and profound spiritually transforming experiences. And they didn't have to be nearly dead to have them. That's why I'm saying I can't recommend that because who knows?
Right.
Like,
Don't go out and kill
you know,
yourself.
you don't
yeah.
go out, yeah. But yeah, a passion for life and an understanding that I can have a sort of paradise here if I choose to. I've also learned that the universe is very kind, very loving. It's my views of things that could make the universe a very non-supportive, unloving, judgmental, punitive universe in my thinking.
the labels that you put on everything.
We do. We put labels on ourselves, on other people, on God, if you will, on how everything's going down. And we think these things so much so that they can become our reality. But what's really true for me today is a very friendly universe that isn't here to get me for anything, not out to get me for anything, but I feel to lovingly support me and everybody else, you know, and learning our lessons and being better people. And I think it's really important to have a good time in life, to enjoy it, to relish in it, to embrace it. I feel a deeper capacity to love today. I mean, I've always loved the people I've loved, but it was always, and this wasn't intentional on my part, it's just kind of how we grow up, and once we get out of childhood and whatever that's been for us, we have ourselves set up in a certain way that may or may not be really truly who we are. And one of the things I learned in the NDE was to come to terms with the truth of who I am. And who I am is a loving person who can sometimes get hurt very easily. And I have to be aware of how I let that happen. You know, it doesn't mean because I had NDEs that I don't experience all the human feelings. Everything I've experienced since the NDEs. I just get a little bit different perspective on it. You know, rather than staying in a judgment, staying in a resentment, staying in jealousy or anger, but rather saying, okay, what is this telling me? What can I learn about myself because I'm feeling really jealous about somebody? What is that saying to me about me? Why not learn from it and use it to have a better life and more loving life as opposed to staying in it? But the stuff still comes up for me. You know, it's just the way of looking at it is very different for me now. You know,
Right.
and it's truly, truly interesting how when I have changed things, and let's say other people haven't changed, but I have, somehow their reactions to me change. You know?
Yeah.
Because I take
True.
I take responsibility to the best of my ability. And some days I just screw up. And you know what? Some days life just feels like it just sucks. I mean, that's reality some days.
You can't have this experience that some people think, oh, well, now you're going to be perfect for the rest of your life and everything's going to be wonderful and you're always going to think positive. It doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen that
we're
way,
human,
but you're
right?
given this gift, though, to recognize that you can still get on the other side of all those human feelings if you so choose. That's what's been so powerful for me. I can say, yeah, that was not pleasant what I just experienced, or I don't like how I was acting just now, or I don't like how this other person was acting, you know. But I can say, okay, well, how can I go a notch up here and do something with this to make my life better? And also to be more fair to other people, you know.
Do you contribute that to the experience that you had?
I do, directly.
Being able to recognize yourself
I mean,
right away?
Yeah, because I used to, you know, inadvertently act in certain ways. That, let's put it this way, I wasn't winning friends and influencing people, as that Dale Carnegie book,
Yeah.
In a positive way. And very often I would go, God, I wonder why I just acted that way. That wasn't good. I don't like myself acting that way. You know, today I have more enlightenment, a little more upliftment, a little past staying stuck in that stuff now, which is another ongoing gift of the NDE. And another thing I want to just briefly say is when I realized something had happened to me after this car accident, and one of the nurses, my trauma nurse, my main trauma nurse, had said to me, well, we lost you a few times there, but you kept coming back, girl. She was a Vietnam Army nurse, and she has seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Wonderful woman. And she said, yeah, we couldn't kill you off. I said, oh, too bad, you know. And, but, you know, I knew something had happened. And one of the most profound things was I had been embraced by a love I can't put into words.
That's what I was going to ask you when you said that.
I mean, that's what, during all this stuff that was going on that I wasn't physically aware of, when they were trying to save my life in those first crucial days when I had these brushes with death, I wasn't aware that I was having brushes with death.
Right.
What I was having a wonderful time being in a place of great love and feeling the love of a being, which I'll call the all-powerful divine being, whatever you want to call it. Could be so many names for this, that was loving me at a level beyond love.
Do you still feel that?
I do sometimes.
You do?
Especially if I allow myself quiet time to just kind of do my feel my breath, you know, and just feel my heart energy and my breathing and remembering and feeling that love again. And I sort of put myself in a, almost like, you know, those snow globes that you can shake and
right.
Almost having myself in a snow globe, and all this love is falling down on me and into me, and I remember when they were talking, the medical people were talking around me. I wanted so much to say to them, no, don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay. But at that time, I couldn't speak to them. I've just been embraced by the greatest love I've
That's what
ever
you remember
known.
the most, huh?
And
The great love.
and the great love. And I wanted to tell them, don't worry. I'm going to be all right. You know, I wanted to comfort them. I wanted to comfort the loved ones who were there, who were clearly very upset. And I was aware of it at some level. And I wanted to comfort them, you know. And I think particularly of my daughter, who was the first one to get to the hospital. They were able to get in touch with her because they found my cell phone out on the highway someplace. And they started calling my contacts, you know. And she was the first one by herself. She drove down to this hospital. And she later described it to me that she went into the room where I was, and she screamed and ran out of the room when she saw me. And my nurse, the same wonderful Army nurse, she had been an Army nurse in Vietnam, had told my daughter, she's not going to look like your mother. You don't have to go in there right now. You know, we still need to work with her, and there's more things we need to clean things up and help her out a little more. And but my daughter insisted. She says, "No, that's my mom. I have to be with her." And she did. She actually came back. She was later telling me. And that precious girl stayed by my bedside and held my hand. They put a cot in the room, and they said they would come in, and she still had my hand. And she was there a lot. She was there a lot, and so was my son and others. And, you know, it's pretty phenomenal love that was going around, you know.
What would you say to people who have not had a near-death experience, but what they could do to raise their life and get this recognition and become more spiritual themselves? Or what message would you say to them? How?
I think the most important thing is for people to realize they really are okay. Maybe they just haven't seen that yet. And I believe each of us is a miracle. And it's miraculous to be having this life. And it's abundant, and it's joyful, and it's wonderful. But I would say to people to trust the process, you know, and know that they're here with great purpose and that their lives matter. And if you have that kind of viewpoint at the starting gate, then whatever you need, any individual needs, to have that life of purpose and meaning, that they can say when they put their head on the pillow every night, I'm at peace. You know, I know that for today, I did the best that I could, and I learned what I needed to learn, and that kind of thing. But once, for me, when I sort of declared it, if you will, to the universe and sort of put it out there, that I wanted to learn about myself, and I wanted to live a better life, and I wanted to learn new ways of being instead of some of these patterns that I was stuck in. And I didn't know how it was going to come about. But I had to trust that process once again, that if I want to live a better life and a purposeful life, and I put that out there, the help will come that I need.
Right.
And it might be different for somebody else than what works for me.
Right.
So I don't want to say there's specific things you need to do, because for some people, some of the stuff that I may do to work on myself and grow spiritually may not work for somebody else. And so therefore, I believe each of us putting it out there sincerely, that we do want to be on a spiritual path and to know why we're here. Everybody wants to know what's our place in the universe. Everybody wants to know that. That's the big question of humanity, is why are we here? Like, what's up?
You're right.
You know?
You're exactly right.
And we each have to take that journey ourselves, but we don't have to really do it alone. But it is an individual journey somehow for each of us. Yes, it's united with the journeys of everybody else, you know. It's a pretty cool thing. And I'm fortunate also, since my NDE, to have seemed to have drawn people to me, or I'm drawn to them, that are also very interested in taking the spiritual path and being on a purposeful journey, and, you know, really caring about how they're being in the world, you know, and what can I do while I'm here, so that when I'm gone, my life will be remembered for something that maybe helps somebody else.
To help somebody else.
You know, or just brought more joy to people, more laughter, more love. I like living today, and I don't do this perfectly by any means, but I at least have the desire and the commitment to being a better person, you know? And I know where I screw up. I know when I'm doing it, you know, but I didn't used to. So that's a big big progress thing there, because now I know in the midst of behaving a way I shouldn't be, oh my God, this isn't good. Okay, I have that opportunity to turn that around and clean it up pretty quick.
One of the biggest prayers people should pray is, please, God Father, help me to recognize myself. Help me to recognize myself in all situations. You know, really. Because everybody's so fearful today and so worried, and it's so, I want this, I want that, this should happen, this shouldn't happen, this is terrible, this is bad. God has been taken out of the picture.
Yeah.
There's no faith. It's like you just said, trust the system. There's no faith.
Right.
We don't mean the system here. We don't mean the government.
No,
we
no.
mean God. We
The
mean
higher system.
That's right.
Yeah.
Put our faith in that.
I think that what you're saying is really true, Rosemary, and you know, my NDEs, and I know people who've experienced NDEs that I've heard share about it, have said this very thing. We don't have to really worry.
No.
Because there's a higher system, a higher operation, if you will, going on here, higher management of the universe that we can trust. You know, and we each, I believe, it's my personal belief, and this came out of the NDEs as well, that there's a divinity spark, if you will, within each of us.
Yeah.
Because we come from
Divine.
I believe.
Yeah.
Some divine source. We're not from slush. You know, we're not chopped liver. You
God
know,
created us in His image.
it's a
He's divine.
beautiful-
We're divine.
we have absolutely, and we have a divine identification with that. You know, and
Do you have any recollection of where your mind was at before this happened to you? You know,
probably pretty screwed up. The day of this car accident, I was rushing to work, and I was doing my usual crazy thought patterns about everything that was going to go wrong, you know, and how I was mad at this one, and this
So
one,
more
because they
negative.
weren't doing what I thought they should be. Or those darn ungrateful kids, why did they leave all this mess all over the house, and blah, 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 blah. And of course, really didn't matter.
You just never know.
The truth was, I love my children and they love me, and that's the truth I live in now. Not did you do this, did you do that? Well, gee, I can't believe you did that. But rather, gosh, I really love you. You know?
We're out of time. God,
That's
it's
too
went so
fast. I know.
Oh my goodness. We're going to give
did go.
contact information now.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the
It's a
show.
joy
It
to
was-
be here.
As soon
was
as I get
wonderful
the
to meet you.
contact
Thank you.
information up there, we'll tell the people. For Healing Outside the Box, Rosemary Lachance. My phone number is 203-627-7966. My email is whitebuffalo8@comcast.net. My website's www.rosemarylachance.com.
And I'm Dina Scungio, and my email is freewind1@comcast.net. And on Facebook and Twitter, you can find me under D. Scungio.
And to get a hold of Sarah, get a hold of me, and I will get a hold of Sarah for you if there's something important you'd like to ask or anything else. We're going to do it that way for Sarah because she would be bombarded with contacts, okay?
Thank
All
you.
right, Sarah, thank you. It was
You're very
wonderful.
welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I've had a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you, so much.
We'll get together again in the future.
We love it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night.